Warm welcomes everyone. This is Dudashan Kendra Shillong and I am your anchor for today's panel discussion on weather and disaster. My name is Abhameda Giri Karmalki. So Meghalaya is a state in northeast India and it is prone to frequent weather-related disasters due to its hilly terrain, heavy monsoon rains and extreme weather patterns. The state faces challenges such as landslides, flash floods and cyclonic storms, etc. With the increasing frequency and intensity of these weather events, effective disaster management has become crucial. This panel discussion will explore the impact of weather-related disasters in Meghalaya, the role of forecasting and early warning systems, and the strategies needed to build resilience, enhance preparedness, and ensure coordinated response strategies for communities vulnerable to such risks. With me here we have Sir Mr. W.L. Nari, SDO Water Resources, Southwest Garo Hills Division, and we also have Shri Vivek Lingdor, Senior Project Associate, Meghalaya Climate Change Center, MDBA. So my first question will go to Sir Lingdor. Sir, how is climate change altering weather patterns in Meghalaya, particularly in terms of rainfall intensity and frequency?
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank the Meghalaya State Disaster Management Authority for providing this opportunity and a platform where we can discuss a very important topic for disaster and weather and climate change. So I would like to start with defining what weather is and what climate is, and then I will answer your questions. So weather, as we know, is the condition of the atmosphere over 24 hours over a region, and climate is the condition over a region but over a longer period, which is a minimum of 30 years. So a change in that 30 years is what we term as climate change. So for Meghalaya, to understand if we are being impacted by climate change or are we facing climate change, we need to understand our past data. So we've had data in the past. We've done a study with IIT Gandhinagar where we've studied the observed period from 1981 to 2012. This is 30 years, and we've seen that there is an increase in the amount of precipitation that we've received, annual precipitation, and that change is about 11.56 millimeters per year. So we are getting an increased amount of rainfall annually. Okay, so that is a change. So we have scientific evidence to say that yes, Meghalaya is facing climate change. Similarly with temperature. So we are also seeing an increase in temperature, and over 30 years the accumulated is about 1 degree Celsius. So we've already seen an increase of 1 degree Celsius. Now this is going to impact both rainfall patterns and intensity and frequency. And based on that data, we've also done projections. Okay, we've done climate modelings, and these modelings they project temperatures and rainfall patterns in the near term, the mid term, and the long term. So we're talking of near term in the period of 2020 to 2040, and in the mid term is 2040 to 2060, and then the long term is 60 to 80. Okay. And beyond that, sorry. So the data shows that we are going to have an increased amount of rainfall, okay, but the duration of time is going to shorten. So that is data that can be used in planning, and what we are talking about is the frequency is going to change. Okay, you're going to see more number of wet days, okay, and we're going to see more events of heavy rainfall. So these are some of the data that is being shown by this study, and it is going to impact or have an effect on the disaster that the state is already facing. We know that the state is a multi-hazardous state. Okay, it's facing, as you've mentioned in your introductory statement. So we can see that. So there is a change in climate, that we are seeing, and the projections is also saying the same. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much, sir. So now I'll move on to Sir Nari. How is the water resource, since Sir has been talking about how the rainfall has increased and the frequency has shortened of sorts. So now how is the Water Resource Department managing this increased risk of floods and waterlogging in the low-lying areas of Meghalaya?
Yeah, first of all, same thing, I extend my greetings to all the viewers, and also the opportunity given by SDMA to take part in this panel discussion of this very important matter regarding the weather and the disaster. Yes, before going to that, I would like to continue to what Sir Vivek has just emphasized just now. Like, we're talking about the floods. Managing the risk of floods and waterlogging in the low-lying involves many aspects. A flood is a natural disaster and cannot be stopped by human beings or any technology. But then its devastation can be minimized by human or technology interventions. There are two types of floods which we experience. One is called the sheet or the inundation flooding, which usually happens in plain areas. And the other is the flash flood, which is usually happening in the hilly areas. So the Department of Water Resources, as you've asked our department, we are looking into this matter, into this aspect very seriously, and we have seen that, and we have experienced more and more flood situation in our state. In hilly areas, particularly like in Khasi Hills area, where we experience a flash flood, and in plain areas like in Garo Hills areas, we experience inundation flooding. So both have their own devastating impact on the citizens, either directly or indirectly. So to manage these various factors, which composes both both the hard component and the soft component. There are two factors. The hard component, or we can say the structural component, and the soft component is a non-structural measures. So for areas subjected to flood, there's nothing much that we can do. Like particularly in hilly areas, there's less that we can do, because the lead time from when the heavy rainfall occurs in the catchment area and the time that the water reaches the river, where the river level rises, this time is very short. So we don't have that much time to give the warning system to the people who are residents of those areas. Like they should not venture, or they should not venture into the river or nearby the river. The effects of this flash flood is, it's mainly bank erosion, landslides, and so on. And so the outcome it produces is that there is a loss of land and properties, especially those situated nearby the river banks. And this impacts the livelihood of particularly the farmers who have those whose agricultural land are being washed away during the flash flood. So apart from that, there is the loss of properties, and then roads and bridges gets washed away, and then it damage or disrupt the transportation and communication system. In all these areas, the department, through the available budget, that means as a state budget, of course we don't have much, but we provide some kind of a river bank protection. So either with some structure called as a stone masonry walls, or a gabion walls, or a river bank revetment, bamboo palisading, whichever is possible depending upon the situation, the site situation. Now with the ever increasing of these floods situation, there are more and more demands that for these kinds of structures to be provided, which proves to be very effective. So these are the floods which is happening in the hilly areas. Whereas in the plain areas, like I've said earlier, like the inundation flooding or the sheet flooding, we say that it's covering mainly in plain areas. Like in Garo Hills and Southwest Garo Hills, just a few months back, we have a very devastating flood in the Southwest Garo Hills and Garo Hills. Okay, so these requires a large scale interventions. However, the department in its small capacity, we are trying to implement construction of earthen embankments wherever there's a breach in the river or vulnerable to the breach of the river banks, So other small scale embankments of river bank, or we provide some river revetment, which we call a technical term as river revetment. But we cannot go into like in a large scale because it involves a cost. So here, like for those areas in those low-lying areas, in the plain areas, the sheet flooding is the inundation flooding is very devastating, and many people, they suffer a lot during this time, where their houses get inundated, and the properties and all whatever they have, they get all kinds of problems that they are facing. And the other components, the other component means the third component, which is the soft component, we say. This non-structural or the soft component is very, very important, like to play a role in when it comes to the flood. Okay. For this to be able, it requires immense back-end work, which includes data collection, and then data collection of hydrological and meteorological data, and then flood modeling, and then dissemination of information and flood warning system to the citizen. These are the very important aspects of the non-structural part. So here we don't do any construction, but we are collecting all those data, and those data that we have collected runs into a system where we can generate a kind of a model to see what will be the flood scenario of a river or a stream or of a particular area. These are very important. So the department in recent years, past years, we have through a project called a National Hydrology Project, we have installed a numbers of these hydrological and meteorological observation sites where the data is being collected. Of course, we have these what we say the satellite data, but then we also need to have field data, observed data from the site, so that we can get the actual data which is happening on that particular site. So we have installed a number of those hydrological and meteorological observatory sites across the state to collect these data. So once these data are available, then we will be able to do a flood modeling. Once we do the flood modeling, we will be able to know what will be the behavior of that particular river during high flood, during heavy rainfall. So these are the things that the department is moving towards it. And then like the central government is also have asked all the states to have a floodplain zoning. And this is very important, and because without which we will not be knowing like how much the water level will rise in a particular area. And so this floodplain zoning, which the central government has asked all the states, and even our state now, we have drafted an act on this, which is to be implemented, so that all those places, all those areas adjoining, adjacent to the river, will have this floodplain zoning. We are moving towards that direction. And soon the management of flood in the state will take a better shape because of these interventions. Okay. So like what we say, that anything which cannot be measured cannot be managed. So same thing is that the department is trying to measure the various parameters that are relating to water and flood. So if we cannot measure, if we don't have the measure of these things, it's very difficult for us to manage. So the question is that how do we manage the risk? First, we need to measure. Once we have these measures with us, all these data we have, then we can go into that. We can say that we can plan how to manage our water resources, particularly when it comes to the flood. Okay, but when we see going to the for measuring the water flow in the catchment, which causes a flood in that area, requires a system for flood protection and flood prediction and flood forecasting. The system requires data pertaining to water, without which we cannot do anything. The primary data here is like, we know that it is rainfall, which is to be acquired by the system in real time and near real time. When it comes to the flood warning system, when it comes to flood prediction, when it comes to warning when there's a flood that is going to take place in any particular river, there we need a real-time data. With historical data, it is difficult for us to develop a system where we can give the warning to the citizens. But once we have that real-time data, which can be collected from the site through a device called a telemetry system, where the data from the site goes into the satellite, and from the satellite it comes to the data center, which we have in our department. So through this data center, there will be a processing system, and the processing system will analyze all those data and then will tell whether a flood is going to happen or not in that particular river. So these are the things which the department is working as of now. So once the data is available and the catchment properties is also available with the system, then that hydrological modeling can be taken up to understand the high flood level or the high flow level of the river or stream. Okay. This will indicate whether that area will be subjected to flooding or not when the rainfall has occurred in the catchment. So the extent of the flood can also be determined after, like what I've said earlier, is that if we have the floodplain zoning maps. And then we also have a State Water Informatics Center in our department, SWIC, which is in line with the National Water Informatics Center. So this was established for systematic collection, integration, validation, analysis and maintenance of water-related data. So we also have a Meghalaya State Water Resource Development, Meghalaya State Water Resource Information System, or the MEGWRIS, we say MEGWRIS, Water Resource Information System. This was developed to facilitate real-time data dissemination for necessary decision and information of stakeholders during the floods. So like as a department, we are moving towards that direction where we see that if we cannot do it immediately, but we are moving in that direction where we can manage floods in the time to come when we see where the pattern keeps on changing. Regarding water logging in the state, till date we have not received any report which says about water logging. However, in plains areas like in Phulbari area and then Rajabala area, Chibinang area in Garo Hills, and even Mahendraganj in southwest Garo Hills, these areas they are subjected to water logging during the high flood flow. The reason is that one, like in Phulbari site, Phulbari area, because of the high river level or high flow level of the Brahmaputra river. So because of the high flow level of the Brahmaputra river, it does not allow another river which comes from Garo Hills, which is called the Jinjiram river. This river cannot enter into the river; it gets blocked. So it causes a water logging in the particular area. Similarly, like in Mahendraganj and some other places adjacent to the border, it cannot go to the water cannot be like discharged directly into the stream because of some structures which has been constructed. So, but then there is no that long standing of any water logging. Once the flood has receded, then through the natural drainage, the waterlogged area gets drained into the river. So these are the management that we are trying to do from the department.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we understand that the department has taken many steps in order to manage the increasing risk. So I come back to Sir Lyngdoh. So we've heard what Sir has said. So what is the long-term implications of climate change in Meghalaya's water resources and disaster management?
So like I've mentioned to the earlier question, that we are going to see an increase in both rainfall and also there's also an increase in temperature. Okay, so when there is an increase in temperature, there will be higher rates of precipitation, evaporation. Okay, and that is going to lead to water scarcity in the long term. So we are going to see that especially in water stress areas, availability of water is going to be difficult, and we are going to also see groundwater levels changing. As of now, we understand that the groundwater is not as exploited, but when there is a shortage of available fresh water, then there will be a higher rate of exploitation. As of now, it is less than 2.5%. As compared to the national average of about 68% of utilization. And but we need to also understand that when there is an exploitation of groundwater resources, then the rate of recharge. How much are we able to ensure that there is enough recharge to these aquifers? So we need to ensure that also, because we are talking about again a lot of water coming down in a shorter duration of time. So are we able to capture that water and recharge these aquifers? So that will be another long-term challenge for us. Third, we are going to see an impact on springs. Most of our rivers, most of our villages are dependent on springs, and a sample study has already indicated that about 54% of our springs are getting impaired or are getting dried up. So these springs also will be required to be carefully managed. Sir has mentioned a lot of initiatives. A lot of departments are taking initiatives. The department where I am working, Meghalaya Basin Development Authority, is also taking a lot of initiatives in ensuring that these springs are managed well, they are sustained, they are conserved, and they are ensuring water availability to the communities. So the challenge still remains. How many of these springs can we manage? Because mapping these springs, however, are being done, but there are challenges in managing these springs, because some of them are located in very difficult terrains, and the geology of our state is such that it is very difficult to define the catchment of these, or the area of the spring sheds. Okay, so these are some of the challenges that currently we are facing, but because of the impacts of climate change, they are going to be the issues are going to be heightened up. So the next, we can see the issues of a lot of siltation in our rivers, and if you can say, you know that our state is hydro based, our energy is hydro based. So if our rivers are laden with silt, so that will pose a challenge to producing energy requirements. So these are the long-term challenges that we see because of the siltations, because of the landslides that are potentially going to happen because of the heavy rainfall. So these are some of the long-term effects that we are going to see over a period of time in the long term. And of course, we're talking about also pollution, water pollution, where we can see from mining activities or from activities which contribute to as of now, we do see some of the rivers being polluted, but if correct measures are not being taken now, climate change will only further exacerbate these challenges that are going to take up in the future. So yeah, I mean, these are the problems that we are going to see in the future.
Sir Nari, what role does the department play in managing water resources during periods of both drought and excessive rainfall?
The role of the department in managing the water resources during the periods of excessive rainfall, drought and excessive rainfall. Okay, for dry season or a drought situation. Actually, in our state, we have not faced any drought situation, but we have faced a drought-like situation. We'll put it that way, drought-like situation. So after the monsoon season is over and before the onset of the dry season, the irrigation dams, we have irrigation dams. Since we are water resources department, we deal with irrigation projects. So we have irrigation dams and barrages. They were made sure that they are filled up by closing the gates. We have the gates closer, called as sluice gates. So these gates are being closed, and then the water is then stored. So once the water is stored, then that water is being used for irrigation purpose and other purpose other than drinking, because we are not mandated for drinking. Then the impounded water or the accumulated water in this structure it also helps in improving the soil moisture or recharging the groundwater, so that the well nearby does not dry up before the monsoon season arrives. So the department have also taken up like rainwater harvesting and then jalkuns for agriculture use during dry season, and also rooftop rainwater harvesting, particularly in government establishments and schools, to meet the water requirement of these establishments during the lean season when the water supply is limited. And then some projects were also taken by the department, like Sir has said, regarding the springs, rejuvenation of springs, particularly those springs which have decreased the discharge. So this enables the spring to yield water even during the dry season, because some of the springs which are perennial springs before now they have become a seasonal springs. So these are the intervention, the action, the role which the department is doing. But for excessive rainfall, again the same gates which we close before the monsoon season, once the monsoon season arrives, we open those gates so that the excess water, whatever is coming to the river, can pass through safely and smoothly without causing any damages to the structure or to the banks of the river or to the nearby surrounding places. So this is one of the things. And then the supply of water, the supply to the canals and pipelines which we generally convey water to the agriculture area, these structures are also closed so that water does not pass through these places, through the pipes and the canals. And then we also monitor the river, the flow of the river during high flood season, and we have our site staff deployed to the particularly area, to the particular river or stream in that particular area of functioning, so that they report to the office at the district level whether there is a flood, if there is anything, so that to see that the water is passing smoothly, the high excessive water means the storm water or high flood water, and if there is any damages or anything, then they file a report, and according to the district office file an FIR to the office of the deputy commissioner, so that or if there is any emergency actions to be taken to prevent of any further damage. So we expect that in future, with the establishment of this State Water Informatics Center, I said, like, and Meghalaya Water Resource Information System, more can be done to provide a better solution for both drought and the excessive rainfall situation.
Thank you, sir. So my next question will be directed to Sir Lyngdoh. Sir, how can Meghalaya balance climate change mitigation and adaptation strategies to reduce the impact of weather-related disasters?
So Meghalaya has a policy document called the Meghalaya State Action Plan on Climate Change. So the first edition of this climate change plan was approved by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change in the year 2014. Okay, and now we have revised as per the mandates of the Government of India. We are revising, and we have completed the revision process, and we have submitted also the document of the revised plan. We've submitted to the ministry again. So the document clearly defines what the state wants to do, is doing, and in both adaptation and mitigation. Okay, so we are laying down all the activities. The document mentions eight priority sectors, in which disaster management is one of them. So we have agriculture, we have forests, we have water resources, we have urban settlement, and we have tourism, disaster management. Okay, so these are the sectors that, and we have tourism. Did I mention that? Okay,
yes.
So these are the sectors that they are called the priority sectors in the state action plan. So the plan is how are we going to invest and where are we going to invest. So part of this document, we have assessments done to identify which districts and which blocks require important investments in terms of infrastructure or any other kind of resource mobilization. So additionally, the government has also over the last 3 years come up with a climate action budget. So if you know, the state annual budget is coming in this coming month. So for the last 3 years, the government has come up with a climate action budget, where again all activities of the departments which align towards adaptation and mitigation are also separately mentioned in the document. So as of now, roughly 15% of the state budget is dedicated to climate actions and climate mitigation actions. So a lot is being done as of now. And to further it up, we have also these externally aided projects, which also addresses mitigation and adaptation actions in the state. So a lot of these EAPs are externally aided projects funded by World Banks, and KFW. So these are externally funded projects which the government has received, and they are focused on addressing mobilization of resources to these natural resources and ensure that their sustainability and how we conserve them, and make sure that every activity under these projects are also for the welfare and also for ensuring that the impacts of climate change are minimized and building a resilient state, basically.
Okay, thank you, sir. So my next question is directed to Sir Nari. So, sir, how resilient are the existing water infrastructure systems? Like sir has mentioned, you have mentioned the dams, the reservoirs, the irrigation systems in Meghalaya to extreme weather events.
As this is another question which is very important to look into its aspects. Like the structure right from the dam, barrages, canals, pipelines and other hydraulic structures, these structures are designed as per the relevant IS code, Indian standard codes. So the hydrological data particularly to that site, along with other parameters such as the soil, the site condition, was taken into account for designing any hydraulic projects, any hydraulic structures. And for agriculture purpose, I mean like for dams and barrages, like in rural area, we normally take the discharge of a return period of 50 years, what we say in the in hydrological terms. 50 years means like the high flood which returns once in 50 years. So we take that high flood, and based on that, the discharge of that high flood, we design the structures. So for up to that extent, all our design, all the structures are safe, they are resilient, they are safe. But anything beyond that, or but other combining with other calamities, and then with like a lack of maintenance and upkeep of the structures. So these are the other dimensions which cannot be measured or guarantee its resilience. Till date in the state, there is no major major disaster reported due to the failure of any of the water resources structure. And these structures, after the monsoon, after the high flood season, after extreme weather conditions, they function as they're supposed to. So they are resilient enough to withstand any extreme weather conditions till date. But however, we don't know like up to what extent the weather conditions can happen. So yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. So again, Sir Lingdo. So are there any ongoing research or community-based initiatives in Meghalaya aimed at building climate resilience?
Okay, our center is primarily focusing on building the state knowledge on climate change. So research is integral to our work.
Yes.
So we've done a lot of work with understanding the vulnerabilities of these sectors. So we've done vulnerability assessments of agriculture, water resources, health sector, and for disaster we've come up with the help of institutes like under the mandate of DST, which is the Department of Science and Technology, and Government of India. They have devised a consortium of institutes. This includes IIT Guwahati and IIT Mandi. So they've come up with a assessment called a district level climate risk assessment. Okay, so when we do a risk assessment, we are taking two risks into the factor. Okay, into consideration. Sorry, and these are flood and drought. So when we are talking about the assessment, it shows that some of the states and the district in particular, in Meghalaya we have some of the districts which are going to are at risk of flood or are at risk of drought. Okay, so these assessments, they help in documents such as the State Action Plan Climate Change. So here when we put these assessments, we put these research in policy documents, and these guide the policy makers in ensuring that where our resources are going to be mobilized, like I said earlier. So they help in a way of understanding which district, depending on the level of the assessment, it could be at the block level, it could be at the district level, it could be also at the village level. So they help in understanding what is the vulnerability of the area, what is the risk of the area, and how are we going to address these issues. So that part of the research is covered. And when we look at community-based initiatives, and there are a lot that the government has taken up with the communities, but I can give an example of the Green Meghalaya scheme that the government has initiated, I think 2-3 years back. So the Green Meghalaya, the green is an acronym for grassroots level response towards ecosystem enhancement and nurturing, which means that we are saying that the grassroots, the community, are the people who are going to ensure that our ecosystem is enhanced and they are nourished. So we are talking, so this scheme is about how we are conserving the forests, and the government is helping these people with additional funds to help them preserve and protect these forests. So recently this Green Meghalaya has been upgraded to a Green Plus, where the remunerations are higher than the earlier one. So through this scheme also, we have seen that a large number of forests has come under this scheme, and they are being protected as of now. And they are also looking at further how do we improve the benefits to the communities. So we are looking at carbon markets per se. So we can see that how international carbon markets can help these communities preserve and protect their forests, and how they are benefited for taking the initiatives of preserving, because we know that forests are an important part. We have a major chunk of our state, a geographical area, is covered with the forest, and how we need to preserve it from further degradation. There are some deforestation and degradation, so how do we address them? So this is one way that the government has taken up proactively, and communities have also responded equally to preserve. So this is a good example, I can say, for the community initiatives.
Thank you. An example of when the government and the community work together for a better future, you know. So now we come to Sir Nari. Are there any integrated water management projects in Meghalaya that involve both flood control and water conservation?
Yes, as of now, there are no such project where an integrated water management projects that involve both the flood control and water conservation. We have done integrated water resource management projects, but we have not done which also involves with flood control. But I was saying this, just a few days back we had a discussion with our chief engineer that that the department is looking into the possibility of having what we say as a detention dam, where we can store the water during the flood season and release it later on slowly to prevent the extent of damage of the flood. So we are thinking, like in some of the major rivers or some of the important rivers, if it's possible to go for these kinds of project where water can be stored during the monsoon season, and at the same time that water can be used also for some other purpose as our conservation. And then side by side it will also act as a flood control measure. But this, considering our terrain, so we need to have these kinds of a project in a cascading manner. We have those some kind of a dams like in the stage wise of the river, but we are yet to explore the possibility. It's just in the discussion stage, and maybe in the years to come perhaps we will be able to materialize it so that it it benefits the state.
Thank you so much. So we look forward to such to such projects. Yes. So now these questions will be for the both of you. How do the climate change and water resource department collaborate to develop a unified disaster management strategy for Meghalaya?
I think we are already collaborating. When I mentioned the state action plan, so we've already we have water resource as one of the priority sectors, and we've been collaborating and we've been discussing. We've had consultations with each other over a long period of time to discuss what are the important activities can be taken up and list down in the action plan. So I think that has already been a process of the government where we engagement and consultations have always been a path for moving ahead. And irrespective of that, I mean beyond that, to add to that, I think institutional framework is also quite important. We have some robust institutions framework. We have the Meghalaya State Council on Climate Change, which is headed by the Chief Minister himself. And under this framework, we see a lot of departments coming together and listing again activities and actions and prioritizing what can be done. So a lot of coordination between the departments is already happening, and obviously it will continue to do so while we address the impacts of climate change and also disaster. And yes, collaborations and consultations is the way forward to work together.
Okay.
Yes, so just like Sir has said, exactly, just want to add 1 or 2 points on this. After what we already Sir has said, that the state specific action plan on climate change, we've been working on this also. We are a part of that plan also. We have contributed some of the our part, what is the role that we can play in that. And then there are some aspects which we are also very much into that state specific action plan on climate change, particularly when it comes to data collection. So we hope that working together with the climate change cell, we can materialize this one. And like Sir said, like we are expecting the budget, perhaps there will be able to get some kind of interventions which both of us can, or with some other departments, also the line departments, can together jointly and work in that direction. And then as a department, we also have a state water policy which has been which is now approved, and we are working on that also, how that policy can be implemented, where even the disaster also will be looking, will look after that, after the issues of the disaster and its impact, the water policy. So in the years to come, many things can happen, and will take a different direction where changes will take place, and then some proper mechanism can be put into place.
Yes. Okay. So another question. So when we talk, because disaster affects the community as a whole, so how can the local communities be better engaged in disaster risk reduction efforts, considering the diverse and remote population in Meghalaya?
So from our center, we've been thinking of downscaling the state action plan. So we want to develop now a district action plan on climate change, where the initiatives will be a bottom-up approach, where initiatives will come from the communities. Okay, so we've had this top-down approach for now in the state action plan, but the district action plan will have a bottom-up approach where every village will have their own individual set of plans where they will prioritize in their village, and that will come up in the district action plan. So that is the way forward that we are working right now.
So this way, in order to conclude this panel discussion, I want to ask just one more question. What are the final say on this important subject from your respective departments on building a more disaster resilient Meghalaya in the next decade?
Like I've said earlier, that data is one of the very important aspects when it comes to managing the disaster. So we are moving into that direction. And then another thing is that people or the citizens should be sensitized the effect, the impact of flood. And then like we have seen in the past, where people encroach towards the river. So when the flood season arrives, when the monsoon season arrives and the flood occurs in that particular area, what happened is that there is lots of hues and cries, lots of losses, lots of damages, and all kinds of things that, like it. Then the blame comes to the government, to the department, that they're not doing anything. So this sensitization to the community is very much required, that they should not venture for any construction near the river, and the waterway should be, it should not be constricted, so that water can flow easily, and it will take its own course of its flow, and then the disaster can be minimized. So these are this is one of the aspects which the community has to be made aware of. Yes.
Okay, so thank you, Sir Nari and Sir Lingdo, for your participation in this panel discussion. I hope our viewers are also educated on weather and disaster, as I am now. So thank you so much once again from Doordarshan Kendra Shillong.
Thank you.
Thank you.